So we're able to create to-do objects here inside of the Django admin, but it's kind of cheating. Like, we want someone to be able to come to the site, not be logged in as a super user, be logged in as someone else like Haley, and be able to create their own to-do object. So in order to do this, remember, we start something new, we got to make a URL for it. So let's go to our URLs. We'll go ahead and create one here. And I'm going to call this create, it'll just be /create, but the actual name of this is I'm going to have it be called create to do. Copy this, create to do. I'm going to save that, move into my views. After we've done all of our user information, I'm going to make a new function here called create to do, where we pass in a request. And then this is very similar-esque to when someone is signing up, that if we get a GET request for this, we want to display a form to say, hey, this is how you can create a new to-do object. And if we're going to be showing, if someone's submitting data through a post, we want to actually make that. So we're going to do the similar thing where we have in the other function. So I'm going to copy this line to say, okay, if it's a GET, do this, and then the else, colon, we're going to do something else. For the time, I'll just put pass there. Okay. So inside of the if statement, what do we want to do? Well, we want to return something back with a form. So I'm going to copy, for instance, what we have here in the login. I'll paste this down below. We don't want it to be login user. Instead, we want it to be something like create to do.html. Okay, which means we've got to go make that file. So I'm going to right click here and say new file, create to do.html. And I'll, take, for example, what we have for like login, copy all this, come back to our create to do, paste that in and save. All right, but this is where we have an issue, is with the form. We can't pass forward an authentication form. We need a form that has like the title, the memo, whether it's important, like all of that good stuff. And this is where you start to really see the power of Django Forms. So what we can do is inside of our app, which is called To Do, right? So we have this To Do app. We are going to add a new file here called forms.py. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to say new file, forms.py. And what we're going to do inside of this file is create a new form that we can pass. And just like we had the user creation form and the authenticate form, those ones Django had made, but we're going to make our own here. So the first thing that we have to do is make a new class, and I'm going to call this the to-do form, right? Really special name. Again, there's nothing special about this. You could call it whatever you want, but this to me is really descriptive. But this has to be inheriting from a specific file, and so we're going to import some code. We're going to say from lowercase Django.forms import, and then we want capital model form. So that here, as you can say, this is going to inherit from model form. Do our colon there. And then here, basically, we just have to specify what class it is that we're working with, what model we're working with, and what fields do we want. So we're going to say here, inside of the class, another class, capital meta, colon, and we're going to say model, and we have to say what model we want this to hold. So this should be for to-do objects. So we need to import that. We're going to say from .models import capital to-do. Okay, so the model is now equal to to-do. And then make sure I have the capital on that. To-do, excellent. And then I'm going to say the fields, like what we want to show up, this is equal to a list. And we just specify the fields that we want. Now, with a to-do object, there's a title, memo, created, date completed, important, user. But the thing is, let's walk through these. We should be able to set the title. We should be able to set the memo. We cannot set created, even if we wanted to. Date completed, that should only come into play when we complete one of these. Whether or not it's important, that is one. But the user, it should just be whoever the logged in user is. So we really just want title, memo, and important. So we'll go back to our forms and say that we want the title, comma, we want the memo, comma, and we also want important. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save this. back to our views where we're now going to use this form. So we have to make sure that we go ahead and import this. So up at the very top, we're going to say from .forms import, and then we want capital to do form. Okay, save that. Come back down to our new function here. And so rather than passing an authentication form, we want to pass forward the to-do form with the open and closed parentheses. Make a new one of those forms. All right, so let's save this, and then let's take a look at our code for the template. So let's go to our create to-do. So we don't want it to say login. We'll say something like create. We still want a place to display errors. We'll talk about that in a second. And we still need the CSFR token. We'll display the form as in paragraph tags. Rather than say login, we'll say something like create. We could also say save, something like that. You can see really, because we use Django forms, a lot of these can be very similar. So with that, let's go back to our page. Let's do /create. And look at this. So cool that with just a little bit of work, look at this. Now I can specify a table, a memo, whether it's important. So cool. Django is powerful enough to say, oh, this is a char field, so I'll just do a small text field, whereas this is a text field, so I'm going to do a whole text box that's nice and big that someone can type in a lot of different things. Now, the issue is here that if someone inputs some of this information and hits create, well, nothing really happens. We have to implement that code. So let's go back to the views. We're now to this point, this else statement that someone has posted some information to our view, and how are we going to handle this? Well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to get the information from the post request and connect it with our form. So we're going to say form is equal to capital to do form. And then inside of the parentheses, we're going to pass in whatever is inside of request.post. So whatever they sent us, like the title, the memo, whatever it is, we're going to pass that into this to-do form. And this to-do form is so smart because it's the same one we passed in here. It's able to sort of meld the two, and any information it gets, it puts it inside of this form. Then with this form, we can say form.save, and we're going to do one special thing here. We're going to say commit is equal to capital false. And basically what this is doing is it's saying create a new to-do object for me, and don't necessarily put it in the database yet. Usually when you hit save, when you do a save function, it does. And in fact, if we didn't have the commit equals false, this would save it in the database, except what we're going to do is we're going to put this in a new to-do object. In fact, I'll call this like new to-do just to really emphasize here. This new to-do object, the one thing that it's missing is the user. We want to specify the user field. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say new to-do dot user, and we're going to set this equal to the request dot user. So this is so nice that one, we don't want people making to-dos for other people, so we shouldn't even give them that option. But two, they don't even have to touch anything. It just happens automatically. So we say, okay, that's what it actually is. Now we'll officially say new to-do dot save. Okay, so this will actually put that into the database. And once this is done, we probably just want to send them back to the current page so that they can see that they're new to do. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this line where we say return, redirect, right? All that good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and save this and go back to the create page. I'm going to put something like walk the dog. Oh, we already have that. Let's do something like buy cheese. That'll be fun. I'm going to hit create, and look at that. We've gone back to the current. Like, how cool is that? Now, one thing that I want to specify here is that our code's not exactly perfect. We do have the issue of, let's say, for example, let's go ahead and create another one. Let's say someone tried to create one of these to-dos and their title was too big. Now, we have to do a lot of work to actually get an error to happen. Because the problem is right now, if I take some text and I just copy and paste it again and again and again, you'll notice it won't let me type anymore. And that's because if I right click and inspect this, the Django form is awesome enough that it said, hey, I made the max length of this thing 100. So we have to up this number. Like if I make this like 200 or something like that, now all of a sudden I can like type even more and more and more. So this is now a to-do with the title that's much bigger than 100. If I go ahead and hit create on this, Well, you can see we get this nasty error that says, hey, we've got this value error because some of the data didn't all work out. So to handle this, we're going to copy this value error, come back to our code, and we're going to do another try except. We're going to say try colon to do all of this, and then we're going to say except if there's a value error, which in that case, we want to return back the same form, but specify an error saying something like, you know, I'm not going to get too specific here. There's lots of ways that you can get really specific, like, hey, this particular field went bad or XYZ thing. But for here, we're going to keep it simple and just say the error is bad data passed in. Now, what's so crazy about this is like, it would be really hard for someone to put in the wrong information, meaning they'd have to like edit the HTML and make this work. So you could argue like, this isn't even worth making our own custom thing for. Like if someone's going to go through that effort, we shouldn't give it to them. But, you know, sometimes we mess up with our front end code and maybe that form's not going to be perfect and it does allow stuff that shouldn't be there. And in that case, I think it's important that we do this. So let's go ahead and reload this page. And I'm just realizing this value error, we probably have to import this just like we did with the integrity error. And so let me go ahead and find the code for this. I'm not seeing anything. We might be okay with it. Let's see what happens here. So let's go ahead and reload. I'm going to change the title here to have a max length of 200. Okay, so I'm going to put in some gibberish, copy that, and paste, 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 paste. For a long time, I'm going to hit create. Look at that. We got the error page that says bad data passed in. Let's make it a little bit friendlier, and we'll say something like try again. Awesome. Okay, so with this in place, if we reload, we are now saving to-dos into the database. The user is. Like you'll notice now if I go to the admin, it's going to say, hey, you're Haley. You can't look at this. Okay, I'll log in with my super user. And once I do this, if I go to to-dos, look at this. Buy cheese shows up. This is the one that we just created. The user created, right? So this is our first actual chance to see something that someone has made, a user has made that is showing up in our database, and we can see this via the admin. Pretty cool.